Tonight on StockBox, for the next 90 minutes, we're giving you the opportunity to put your questions straight to the directors of 3 London-listed companies. Well, actually, that's a mistake. It's actually 2 listed companies and 1 Canada-listed company. We hope this will allow you to make an informed decision and better understand your investment, what the company is doing, how they spend your money, and ultimately how they plan to deliver returns for you, the shareholders. So we have 3 directors joining us tonight. Darren Hazelwood, the CEO of Panther Metals, Colin Moore, the CEO of Westward Gold, and Paul Johnson, the CEO of Power Metal Resources. The format for this evening will be to start with a 10 to 15 minute project-specific interview with each company, followed by an open Q&A session for 15 minutes. Now, this is the moment where you can put your questions straight to the CEO speaking. And to do that, the best way to do that is to use the YouTube live chat. So on YouTube, there is the live chat on the right-hand side of the screen. The directors are bound by market rules, but they will do their best to answer your questions as best they can. Now, before we start, we'd just like to let everyone know and remind everyone that StockBox will be at the UK Investor Show this Saturday in London. And you can get a free ticket to the show by using our code StockBox22. If any of you do make it down, please do pop by our stand and say hello. It'd be great to meet as many investors as possible and see people again in the face for real for the first time in a long time. So StockBox22 for the UK Investor Show on their website this Saturday. And yeah, I hope to see many people there. So to kick us off tonight, let's welcome our first guest, Darren Hazelwood, the CEO of Panther Metals. Good evening, Darren.
Good evening, Mark. Thanks for having us on.
Thank you very much for your time, Darren. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks.
Good,
just getting over a very good week in Canada.
Yes, indeed. You have been traveling, haven't you, of course, and the focus of this evening is on the Abonga project, your 100% owned project, which is where you've been spending your time. So just before we get into some of the questions, just can you summarize your trip? Was it a success? Was it packed and very busy?
It was. Yeah, no. Look, it's, as we'll maybe cover a little bit this evening, it's about putting the infrastructure in place on Abonga and making sure that once we start that ball rolling, we've seen enough success at Wishbone from last year. It's only 2 holes, but don't underestimate what we found there. And this now will allow us to go to the next phase. The autumn was a learning curve for everyone in terms of our next steps, because the Abonga Greenstone, it offers so much. And we want to make sure that we're positioned ourselves perfectly to be able to exploit that. And that's exactly what we're doing. And as a result, we've kept our network local there. And that's been a huge help to us. And it continues to, and that network continues to grow. And everything's in place now to move to the next level.
Excellent. Okay, well, a successful trip. I'm pleased to hear that. So let's just look into the project a little bit more then, Darren. What particular minerals are you targeting in Abonga? And could you perhaps explain the greenstone belt that runs through the project area, just to help people watching to get a better understanding?
Yeah, a greenstone belt itself is metamorphosed mafic and ultramafic volcanic sequences. They're also associated with sedimentary rocks. But in the real world, what does that actually mean? They're great hosts for ore bodies, and the reason that is that they're formed through tectonic plates pulling apart, and the magma rises from deep in the earth, below the earth's crust, to fill in that void, really. And what with the rocks of the greenstone belt, what actually happens is the rocks fracture. So if you could imagine taking a bar of toffee, say out of the fridge, and then just giving it a tap with a hammer, it will fracture in all different places. And the fractures within the toffee, or in this case the rock, that provides the pathway for the ore carrying fluids to travel along from deep. And it's those fluids that are below the Earth's surface and they're searching out weaknesses in the Earth's crust to be able to exploit. To be able to exploit those weaknesses, and that's the fractures between the rocks, and that's due to the pressure underneath the Earth that pushes these fluids up. But the really the best bit about greenstone rocks is they also act as a chemical sponge. So what they do, they leach the ore from the fluids as they travel through these fractures, and that's what forms your deposits. And that's why there's so many deposits found on greenstone belts. So sort of in summary, they're big fracture zones of rock that mineral-rich fluids flow through, and they exploit the gaps in the surface, and that then leaves your deposit. But greenstone belts, they contain many commodities, but primarily you're looking at copper, zinc. Lead is a good one, nickel, and also your precious metals, silver and gold. And the greenstone belts of Ontario, they've continued to be a mecca for commercially viable ore deposits. It's absolute fantastic place to work. We all know of the famous Barrick Hemlo mine. That's on the Schreiber Hemlo greenstone belt. That's right on the eastern sort of lower edge of that belt. We've actually got the Sturgeon's Lake Greenstone Belt, which is approximately 80 kilometres to the west of Abonga. The world-renowned geologist Jim Franklin has actually said that he believes they're probably sister greenstone belts. And Sturgeon's Lake Greenstone Belt, that had 5 historically past-producing mines. They all produce commercially, and they only stopped mining once the ore bodies individually run out. And then you've got some of the better known greenstone belts that might be known to London audience, such as the Abitibi greenstone belt, which is on the eastern edge of Ontario and slides across into the next province. But then that's why Ontario's been built on mining, Mark. But the main focus of commodities there that would be on Abonga would be copper, nickel, platinum, palladium, zinc, and the precious metals.
Okay, good. Thank you for that. Perhaps we need another Darren Hazelwood traffic cone demonstration, but it might be slightly harder to demonstrate the greenstone belt than a VMS. But there's a challenge for you.
It's possible, and look, that was very well received. The idea of that was to simplify a VMS deposit and what we're seeing at Abonga. And to be fair, a lot of people contacted me and said, yeah, that makes sense. So it's always a good thing.
Good. Well, can you outline some of the main prospects within the Abonga footprint? And you've mentioned the target commodities. So what are the main prospects that you're looking at?
Well, look, Abonga as a whole is a stunning opportunity, but I think it's worth highlighting that over time, I do wonder if sometimes the message has been lost slightly on Abonga due to some of the corporate activity that we've conducted in terms of our Australian side and the deal with Fulcrum. But that's all done now. It's done. But Abonga offers the one thing that majors do look for, and that's scale. We've set up Abonga with exactly that in mind. And should we make a discovery, it won't go unnoticed. I think we can say that. But there's been sporadic exploration on Abonga over the years, and there's been great results. And if you go through the historic reports from the people that have conducted work on Abonga, you'll see that almost every single report recommends follow-up work. And in fact, BHP, they loved Abonga, but they had to pull out due to circumstances linked to the to the issues in Canada in the early 90s with exploration after the Windy Craggy scandal. And I strongly believe that they would still be there, or they would certainly have done a more comprehensive exploration program. And in fact, we do know the geologist that led that program, and he confirms that he liked the area. But let's face facts, Abonga is challenging, but that's where the opportunity lies. But our approach has been different on Abonga. We control nearly 90% of the greenstone belt. That's a first by anyone. We haven't done that by mistake. We've done that because if we make a discovery, we are very, very confident that we'll be paid with that. But we've started off with, and that was part of last week as well, and some of the stuff we did in the autumn. We've worked with and we're engaging with the local community. They know this greenstone belt, and the amount of tips and information that they've provided and the support that they continue to provide is outstanding. And that's what's going to allow us to take this to the next stage. We've got the infrastructure in place and the support for that infrastructure that no one has ever had. But with our next plan, we will be drilling. We've got 5 drill ready targets. We will be drilling those. Our plans are to drill those by Christmas of 2022, which is this year. That is permits permitting. We've got 3 permits that we've recently put into application, and they are in process. The 2 sites are ready to go. And we've actually got further exploration to carry out on other areas in Abonga, and that will result in further drilling permit applications. But the first 5 targets, I'll run through those. They're very straightforward. Awkward would be the very first target. That is our primary goal. It's a conduit, and that basically means it's a pipe that the fluids ran through, and those fluids created what they call the awkward batholith. Now, remember back to me talking about greenstone belts and the surrounding rocks in greenstone belts that leach the commodities from the fluids being carried through. Well, that's exactly what we think has happened and what awkward is. And people would have taken note that in March and of November of last year, we did 2 deals so that we could secure the east and west sides of Awkward. And that's hence why we haven't drilled it first and why we didn't go there in the autumn. We wanted to have these in place. That's our level of confidence. But we've got anomalous copper, platinum, palladium, zinc, nickel. And we've actually, I was there last week, and you can see some leaching out of some of the cliffs. But we know that's a little way away from Abonga, from Awkward, but we know that hasn't come from the primary source. So there is an opportunity that could be that Awkward could be the primary source even for that leaching. This is a really, really exciting target, and it's amazing that it's never been drilled. But next we'll be going back to Wishbone. Look, we made a discovery on Wishbone that BHP couldn't. They suspected it was there. We found it in 2 drill holes. In fact, both drill holes intersected massive sulfides. One of the drill holes hit massive and semi-massive sulfide intercept, continuous intercept of 51 meters. That would be one of the biggest ones that would have been found anywhere in the world last year. And we'll be going back. We'll be doing 6 drill holes. And this is basically now searching for the ore body, for the discovery, but we know that VMS is forming clusters, and that sort of adds to our excitement. And they're also, VMS are also known as junior explorer company makers, and that's because they're typically high grade. So sometimes the tonnage is reasonably low, but actually we think this system is very big due to the results we had last year with the intercepts of massive sulfide, and that should not be underestimated by the market or by anyone. And we'll also be drilling at Silver Rim. Silver Rim probably just have one drill hole in it. Silver Rim is a mag anomaly, but that coincides with anomalous silver and also lithium in lake sediments. That's a very high grade lithium. We're going to have a look at there. We'll also be drilling Survey. Survey is a high and low mag target. But so what we know from that is it contains metal. What metal it contains, we don't know. But all the indications are that it warrants holes being put in it. And finally, we'll be going to Ottertooth as well. That's 2.5 kilometers by approximately 300 meters wide. It's anomaly. And look, this has actually had 1 hole in it. So if you looked at that anomaly and you would say, well, it's been drilled. Actually, that hole was a total of 150 feet deep, so approximately 47, 48 meters. And it was drilled at 50 degrees. So the depth of that hole was probably circa 23 23 meters. Now, even though that was a shallow, short hole, they actually intersected massive sulfides within that. And that's a great pathfinder element for any discovery. And the fact that nobody's ever been back there with that information to hand is frankly pretty extraordinary. But our main commodity focus, just to answer that side of it, is, as I've said, it's copper, nickel, platinum, palladium, zinc, and the precious metals. But the truth is, Mark, that we've got all the ingredients at Abonga for a discovery.
Okay, excellent. Well, that's a very comprehensive overview on what's going on, Darren. You mentioned there it does come with its challenges. You also mentioned about local communities, and I know engaging with First Nations is a priority of yours. And you mentioned that there's targets that have been drilled, but people have never been back to. So I know we've spoken before about it being quite an intriguing place. Does have its challenges. I want to ask you, what's the feeling on the ground? How is Abonga perceived in Canada by the locals, by the people in the camps, that kind of thing? What's the vibe?
The short answer, Mark, would be that that Canada has a lot more interest in Abonga than London, and the amount of engagement that we've had from Canada, I would say it would literally probably be 10 to 1 to the UK. But as I say, there could be a certain amount of mixing in that because of the corporate activity that we've engaged in as a company to allow us to get to this level. But the Canadians are watching, and a lot of Canadians are watching, and they really genuinely understand the opportunity that the Greenstone Belt offers. But they also understand the challenges, and we found routes around all of those challenges. So in Canada, they believe in the project area like we do, and that's why we're getting the help that we need, and why we've received the advice that we're after, and why the Canadians keep reaching out to me privately and having discussions around the Greenstone Belt that you maybe have not seen in London. But we're working on that, and I'm getting a lot more one-to-one engagement in London, and I'm now able to tell the story. I'll be presenting to Proactive next week live in Mayfair, and we'll be telling the story there again. And it's a good story, and it's a hell of an opportunity.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for that, Darren. So that does bring us to the end of the sort of introduction to the project, and we can, of course, now go to see if there are any questions from shareholders or people watching. So if you do have any questions, please do type them away on the YouTube chat and submit them, and we will pick them up. I do have a couple that's already been sent in. This is actually to do with Panther Metals Australia. Is there any update you can give on where the programs are at with regards to activities in Australia, Darren?
Well, the only information I would have is what would be in the public domain. But I think that it's safe to discuss Coglia, the nickel laterite, and with cobalt credits deposit. All the drill hole data is now released, and it's now out to market. They've extended that ore body through above previous known extensions. They've also found within that drilling that they've intersected deeper sections of the nickel laterite, and they've hit some decent cobalt numbers as well within that. So I'm looking at it as an investor. Panther obviously hold a substantial chunk of the company, but the target there was 30 to 50 million tons of nickel laterite, grading approximately 0.7% nickel with your cobalt credits. I'm personally very confident that they will exceed that. Obviously, that it's very much a guess at this stage, but it's a guess with the information, and we've got the information at hand. And naturally, of course, we work on the data that's released to market internally to have a look at that. I think they're beautifully set within Australia there, and they're drilling two of the gold targets now. In fact, I believe they've completed one program, and then they're now on to the second one. So they're drilling a second gold target, and they're awaiting assays on the first gold target. So the company's set up really nicely. I'm led to believe that there's going to be some progress up in the Northern Territories very shortly, and they're getting out there. The business is set up really nicely. Its valuation is such that I think that they're going to do an MRE, which is a maiden resource estimate. It's going to be JORC compliant on Coglia, and I think that the market will be looking at that. And when that comes out, I think it could be really very interesting.
Okay. Oh, thank you, Darren. So yeah, setup and really just carrying on independently. So that's good to hear. I have another question for you. What are the next stages at Dotted Lake following the recent drilling campaign?
So look, the market looked at Dotted Lake, and we always said that with the drill hole at Dotted Lake, we were effectively having a look at what's going on. No one's ever drilled there, and we were absolutely delighted. We found gold mineralization in multiple places, and it's running through the entire system. We know the grade wasn't fantastic, but let's face it, that grade's actually being mined across the globe. But with Dotted, we've got anomalous copper. We've in the wider area from the soil program that was conducted in the summer of 2021 and announced in the autumn. And those results are really very intriguing. We've got anomalous gold, we've got anomalous copper, and it's not confined to one area. Now, Dotted Lake was originally actually a VMS target for someone, but that's for another conversation. So our follow-up work following the drill program is actually to get into Dotted Lake. We'll be looking at doing some further drilling and some trenching, and to just move it along to the next stage. That anomalous zone runs for 1.3 kilometers, and there's further work to be done to the north and south. And Dotted Lake, genuinely for me, is the one in the background that people are going to forget about, but it just might come back and really surprise a lot of people.
Okay, good. Well, I can see that a question has come in on YouTube, and it's to do with drilling at Awkward. When do you hope to start drilling at Awkward, Darren?
So the plan is to start drilling. We're aiming for the end of June. I've actually got specific dates, but we've got to tie up with a drill rig and other bits and pieces. And those they're all now out. We're out for quotes, but yeah, I'd be reasonably confident at the end of June. But look, it's busy out there at the moment, and there's a lot of competition for drilling and for the associated equipment. So we'd be hopeful for the end of June. I'm hopeful for that, but it's certainly not an absolute promise. But if it was any later than the end of June, it won't be. We're not going to be far out. We've also got the construction of our core inspection facility that starts on Monday of next week, which we'll be able to inspect our own core. We'll be able to cut our own core, and we've got that centralized base that we need. And that is all part of the infrastructure in terms of supporting the company and the program. So it's going to allow us to genuinely attack a bonga like nobody else. And so, yeah, Awkward, fingers crossed, end of June, shouldn't be much later.
Okay, end of June. Good. Okay, do we have any more? Yes, we do. Someone's emailed a question. If you could summarize Palm in a few words, how would you describe the business? Do you have a model you are following or could compare to?
Do I have a model? Now, I'm a big reader. I can't say I have an individual model, but I know within this business that you have to keep everything as close as you can, but also spread your wings. So it's giving you as much chance and as much opportunity to be successful. And I think that's that is definitely what we've managed to do at Panther. I can't ever see Panther becoming a miner. I believe that the value on the valuation curve for an exploration company, and that's exactly what Panther are, is in the discovery and the building out of a discovery. And with some of the deals we've done, that all of them were kind of coincidental. Australia, we had an opportunity to fund the business. We had an opportunity to have a fantastic board, and they've proved themselves with that, and they continue to. So we took that route, and that gave us a holding. And then with Fulcrum, that they made an approach to us that allowed us to do the deal with Sheer Gold, and that allowed us to keep 100% interest in a gold project, whilst also holding a nice slice of Fulcrum. And that was more about enabling us to spread our wings, because we're not just going to hold 20% of Big Bear, we're going to hold 20% of Fulcrum's portfolio. And I think that we're in a moment in the market. I know there's a lot of pain out there at the moment, but that's not going to last forever. Far from it. I see a huge amount of opportunity in the exploration and resource space. Just about every fundamental points to a positive, and we're going to see the benefits of that. So, but it's allowed Panther to spread its wings just a little bit, and that's to the benefit of our shareholders. We've got a situation with Panther where we're going to be holding even current values in excess of £4 million just in assets, and that would be via Australia and Fulcrum. And Fulcrum team are great as well, by the way. Those guys are going to really hit the ground running, and I'm really excited for them and for the business. But in Australia, if this MRE comes in, you can very quickly see our holding valued in the region potentially of 3.5 to 4.5 million. We don't know, but that would certainly be going. Then we're looking at sort of liquid assets in the region of 5.5 to 6 million. There's loads of opportunity we've built in. It wasn't by design, but also it's a risk reward game, and we can't do everything. And I've always been very conscious of our shareholder base. And the fact is that I want the people that bought in and bought shares on the very day that we listed on the market, or even took part in that listing, that they are in a position to benefit from any discovery, that all their gains aren't wiped out by dilution. And that is that the deals with Australia and with Fulcrum, they've helped us and enabled us to be able to offer some of insulation against that. Yet you're still looking at a portfolio that offers so much potential and so much upside. I think we're in a very, very strong position as a business.
Good to hear. Well, thank you for that, Darren. Let me just see if there are any further questions coming in. Panther's model appears to come to market and raise cash as and when required, rather than a significant one-off large raise. Why is that?
Okay, so look, I think that my own view is that London has a bit of an obsession with funding sometimes, and that kind of amuses me, and other times I want to pull my hair out. We're an explorer, okay? So we're going to, like every explorer in the world, at some stage we're going to raise capital, and I'm it's verbal, so I believe I can say this. I've actually got offers on the table for capital in excess of our current market price, and that's from industry players. And because they like what they see and they like what they're doing, and they can't get the size of position that they want in Panther on the open market, because they're just going to drive the price through the roof. So, and they can also see a clear pathway with us in terms of our funding. We've got, if we did the one-off large raise, which is certainly what they favour, and why we're considering things at the moment. that they can see that in 18 months' time, we're going to have a potential opportunity to leverage against some quite substantial investments, especially if the market moves in the way that it probably should, but and I believe will. And that's going to mean that we could leverage against those positions, not trade them, just leverage. But that would mean that there's going to be minimal dilution for the company over 3 to 4 years. But ultimately, if we do a sizable raise that will see us funded for the next 18 months, I've still not convinced that is actually the route to go, even though London does probably crucify us a little bit for that. I've always raised little and often as we attack targets. That way shareholders can see where their money's going. But look, this is a decision that I've got to make, and this is a decision that I'm working through at the moment. But as I've already said, the most important thing with any funding, it is dilution, and I've got to make sure that any discovery, it means that every shareholder in the company gets paid. And but you know, with that in mind, and the fact that the offers are there for us in quite a brutal market, should fill everyone with a lot of confidence. And with our investments, with our asset base, we're in a great position. And I don't want for funding. It's just a natural element of the exploration space. And anybody in the world, as I say, that wants funding, is running an exploration company, they're going to need to raise capital. So we can talk about it. Why not? It kind of frustrates me that people want to hide and duck and dive on it a little bit. That there really is no need. So, but as I say, we've got offers out there, verbal, so it's nothing formal. So I don't believe I'll be breaking anything there. If those are all offers coming formally, then we would have to consider them. I'm not necessarily against it, but it's a balancing act of where we're at, where I see the company going, the impacts of dilution will have, and whether we continue on our current path of little and often, but then allowing the market to punish us. But our level of shares in issue will be lower. So should we make a discovery off the back of those raises, then there's going to be people that are going to be sitting there, you know, without being able to benefit from the upside that's discoveries made. So it's a balancing act.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Darren. That does bring us to the sort of end of your segment. There might be time just very quickly. Is there one more question? No, that's not one more question. Okay. Well, yes. Well, thank you very much, Darren, for your time this evening. What we'll do now is take a quick 2-minute break, and we'll be back with Colin Moore from Westward Gold. But Darren Hazelwood, the CEO of Panther Metals, thank you for your time.
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for everyone that's listening.
Welcome back to StockBox Premiere, where our next guest is Colin Moore, the President and CEO of Westward Gold. Good evening, Colin. Welcome onto StockBox. How are you?
Doing well, Mark. Thanks for having me. It's actually morning where I am.
Yes, I was going to ask, where are you calling from?
I'm in Vancouver right now.
Okay, lovely Vancouver. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for joining us today. So we're going to be talking about your Toyabe gold project, which I hope I have pronounced correctly.
Yeah. That's pretty close, I think.
Good. Okay, so first of all, could you give an overview of the Toyabe gold project, with perhaps focusing your answer on the historical resource that's there and its tier 1 mining location?
Absolutely. So Toyabe is really the backbone of a much larger land package that we've consolidated over the last 12 months. So it's the foundational asset. It's fully contiguous with our other 2 projects that we added subsequently to Toyabe, being Turquoise Canyon and East Saddle. But Toyabe is by far the most advanced property within that land package, which is about 40 square kilometers in size. It does have an active plan of operations. So essentially, that's the permit that you need in Nevada to conduct drilling and exploration activities. So we have that in place, which is great for us. Saves about 2 years of permitting were we to go from scratch. And as you alluded to, there are past drill holes in about 300 drill holes in total over a few prior operators. We're really confined to a small area of the property, the south of the property, in what's called the Courtney zone. So they poked a lot of mostly very shallow holes, really trying to find a sister deposit to our next door neighbor, which is Barrick. They have a small past producing mine. It's now been reclaimed, but it produced in the early 90s. It was an open pit heap leach operation. And that's about 100, 200 meters from our claim boundary. So really, really close by. In 2009, there was a 43-101 put out that defined a very shallow, fairly high-grade resource for Nevada. It was 173,000 ounces at 1.2 grams per ton. And again, really just confined to small area and shallow drilling. So what we're looking to do there is we have a really target-rich environment, and this asset was non-core for the previous owner, a company called Starcore. So they held it on the books for a long time, but they didn't have the capital or the human resources to really advance it in a meaningful way because they were commissioning a producing mine in Mexico. So all their attention was spent down there. So and that's kind of a theme of our consolidation in the area, is taking unloved assets that were kind of on the back shelf at other companies for various reasons, and consolidating them into a district with some size to it. So 40 square kilometers on the Cortez Trend, which is north central Nevada, and we're in elephant country. Essentially, we're surrounded by a lot of Barrick's big producing mines. So Cortez Hills, notably 10 kilometers north of us, Pipeline, Gold Rush, 4 Mile. It's really Barrick's backyard. And as a junior, to have such a large land position on the heart of the trend, I think we're starting to catch people's attention. We certainly have been making some noise. We've had discussions with the majors in the area, and they are eagerly anticipating our next drill campaign.
Okay, excellent. Thank you for that. Just thinking on the history there, it must give you confidence, despite the fact that it was put on the back shelf by another company. You obviously see something there with all the data that is there that gives you confidence that you can make something of this.
Absolutely. So we did inherit a lot of data. We also inherited 15,000 meters of prior drilling. And one of our flagship programs over the winter months, when we couldn't drill, was to do what's called hyperspectral imaging on all the old core and RC chips that we have in our possession. So really kind of creating a database, an objective database and making a correlation model between some of these alterations that we're seeing in the core and how that relates to the grades. So that's really opened our eyes in terms of kind of reverse engineering a lot of really high priority drill targets. So if we're seeing that certain alteration patterns in the core correlate to higher grade, then what we can do is go and find those alteration patterns at surface in other areas that have never been drilled before. And then that combined with all the other programs that we've been running, including IP, airborne surveys, geophysics, geochem, that's really allowed us to hone in on some really high priority targets that are all outside of the small footprint that made up the historical resource that I just talked about earlier.
Okay, so you mentioned there about drill results demonstrating near surface high grade mineralization. You're seeing quite a lot of that, are you, in the historic data that you've been assessing?
Yeah. So essentially, the high grade that we're seeing from surface is structurally controlled, which is what you tend to see in these large Carlin type systems. Is you have high grade structures faulting at surface. And then you have the feeder zone, the prized sea of gold that people talk about, widespread dissemination underneath. So we do have the evidence of the high grade hits from surface. Some notable drill holes be 25 meters at 4 grams, 9 meters at 9 grams, and then some larger intervals like 70 meters at 0.9. So we're really seeing what I like to refer to as the smoke on the property. But prior operators didn't spend the time to actually investigate outside of that resource once it was defined. So what we're going to be doing now is, we like to say that our mineralization is open in 5 directions, because at depth, only 16% of the approximately 300 holes that went into the property went beyond 180 meters. And at the time, the thinking was, an easy open pit wouldn't go beyond 180 meters. So our thinking has evolved since then. Having access to a lot of data, and also our technical team that we've managed to assemble really has a lot of some all-star geologists who've made significant discoveries in Nevada. Notably, a couple of them, Richard Bedell, veteran Nevada exploration geologist. He was on the discovery team of Long Canyon, which is a very important discovery in the last 20 years. That ultimately sold to Newmont for $2.3 billion. We also have a gentleman by the name of Stephen Kaler. He's actually made 11 Carlin-type discoveries in the area. 6 of them are now producing mines, including Cortez Hills. So when he gets excited about seeing a lot of similarities between the early days at Cortez Hills when he was exploring there and what he's seeing at our property, then that gives us a lot of confidence that we have something potentially very real on our hands.
Okay. Well, as the old saying goes, what is it? Takes 5 companies to make a mine,
Yeah. Well, that's good because I think we're number 6. So
good. Well, hopefully, yes, all that money that's gone into the ground beforehand will really benefit you, and yeah, maybe you will be. Hopefully, you'll be the one. So, just thinking on that, of course, some recent news from the companies that Westward Gold is due to commence a 4,000-meter drilling program at Toyabe in the coming weeks. So, apart from finding gold, what are the objectives of this campaign specifically?
Yeah, so there's a few objectives, and we're kicking off. What is it today? The 18th. Yeah. So June, first week of June, we should have drill rigs on the ground, kicking off this 4,000-meter campaign. So a few objectives here. One of them is to step out from the historical resource. So we're going to the south, to the east, and to the west, about a few hundred meters at the closest point to the historical resource. We don't see much value in putting additional holes into that area. We have a very good idea of what's there, except for, in the future, we might want to go a little bit deeper underneath the resource. But really proving out the lateral extent of the mineralization is one of the big keys for us. There's also evidence based on the few drill holes that did go a little bit deeper that we have access to. There's evidence that about 200 to 250 meters, there's this large deformation zone that we believe to be the contact between two important host rock formations in the area, being the Wenban and the Roberts Mountain Formation. So these are host rocks that are key in a lot of these mines that surround us. So we have the same type of rocks, which is great. But that disseminated zone down there has never really been tested adequately. So that's going to be another goal of ours, is to get deep enough to get a sense of that, how widespread that dissemination is. So 4,000 meters over 12 to 15 holes. So an average depth probably of around 300 meters to get through that zone. And another goal is to test a new theory about how the mineralization relates to the open pits, the past producing open pits that are now controlled by Barrick. So we have an idea that is actually an outcrop, and it's dipping to the northeast onto our property, ultimately all the way onto Turquoise Canyon. So getting a sense of how that structure lies in terms of, dip angle, etc. That's going to help inform the geological model, the 3D model that we have on the property, and also inform future drill campaigns that are going to be even more aggressive.
Okay, so proving out the lateral extent, looking at how widespread the dissemination zone is, and testing the theory of open pit mineralization, and then presumably, as you say, developing that 3D model. So it's again, it's building the picture.
Yeah.
And that will then lead into further exploration and a resource estimate, or not quite?
Yeah, so we don't really see the value in putting out an incrementally larger resource. I think our time and capital is better spent really getting a sense of how widespread it is first before you go to market. The markets aren't really rewarding, incrementally larger resources, especially with the pain we've seen recently. So I think our goal is to systematically define a large footprint at Toyabe and then move east. The goal ultimately for the phase 2 of this kind of program probably be in 2023, but the goal there is to put the first drill holes into Turquoise Canyon. So we're moving towards the border eastward, and Turquoise Canyon has actually never seen any drilling before. We've done pretty much everything else you can do prior to drilling, but that would be the first drill holes into that. So that's really kind of a blue sky potential, and I think the market will likely reward potentially a new discovery on that property more so than trying to incrementally increase the size of this historic resource.
Okay, so certainly the rest of the year very busy with exploration, which would be good, and then news flow to keep investors.
Yes, we're very excited.
Okay, good to hear. Well, let's go and see if there are any questions from people watching. Before, as I said before, just type in the YouTube chat there if you have any questions. I have a couple already sent in. Actually, one has just popped up now, so let's go for that. Westward Gold still has a relatively small market cap. Why do you think this is the case? Do you have any corporate debt?
So the easy answer on the corporate debt is we don't have any corporate debt. Our cap structure is we have 68 million shares outstanding and about 2.3 million Canadian in cash. So right now, we're hovering around a $9-10 million market cap, depending on the day. We've been trading still above water from our private placement price, and that was completed in February. So I think flat these days is kind of the new up. So we're pretty happy that we've managed to stay at that price. The other question, why is the market cap still so low? I asked myself the same question, and it's all about getting the story out. It is a fairly new story as currently constructed. Really, it's only been since about July of last year when we added Turquoise Canyon, and then we added East Saddle in December. So we're still getting the word out on that, and I think a lot of people have taken kind of a wait and see approach. They want to see us execute our first drill campaign. They want to, see that we're doing what we said we were going to do. And then, the backdrop of a very challenging market right now. There's a lot of names to choose from. Westward is one of many. And I think the low market cap presents an opportunity for investors.
Yeah, well, we will discuss that at the end after our last guest. We are going to discuss the markets and junior explorers in particular. Can I ask you, is Westward purely focused on Nevada, or is the company looking at other opportunities in other jurisdictions as well?
So right now we have our hands full, and last year was quite active on the M&A front, just putting together these pieces for the overall land package. But we are Nevada focused. All of our most of our technical team, that's where their expertise lies, is in these Carlin systems. That said, if an opportunity presents itself that we think will be accretive for shareholders, we're going to look at it. We do like the Western U.S. Exploration is a very high risk business. So, operating in jurisdictions where you can mitigate some of those externalities like geopolitical risk, I think that ultimately will get rewarded by investors. So yeah, we're looking, but we're very happy with the land position we have now. If something comes up, we'll take a look at it. We have our ears to the ground always.
Yes. Okay. Well, Nevada is certainly a tier 1 jurisdiction, but yeah, it's always good to keep your ear to the ground to see what other opportunities might be available in this slightly challenging market.
Mm-hmm.
Another question that I have that came in: what exploration activities are planned for Turquoise Canyon and East Saddle in 2022? Can we expect some news from these projects as well?
Yeah. So while we're drilling, and obviously there's a lag time for assays, we want to take advantage of the field season to do as much work on the other 2 properties as possible. So East Saddle is very fresh. There's not a lot of data on it. To our knowledge, I think, the prior owner was an oil and gas company, and they were, I think, looking for barite. So hasn't seen a lot of activity exploration wise as far as we can tell. So first goal there is going to be to do full geological mapping. So we're going to have our technical advisors on site. They're going to be putting together what's called anaconda style mapping, which is going to really help us define some areas of interest in terms of what we're seeing on the other properties, and does that line up with what we're seeing at East Saddle. We're going to be doing some soil sampling as well there. Again, just this is very fresh ground, so just figuring out what we have on our hands. And then similarly at Turquoise Canyon, there's going to be a lot of anaconda mapping going on, some more sampling. We do have a good sense based on the prior programs that we've done as to what the high priority target areas will be there. So just really firming that up. The background work is not going to be as flashy, not going to be as sexy as the drill results. That's going to be the major catalyst, but we're certainly advancing those 2 in the background as well.
Okay, good. So plenty of news flow then to come throughout the rest of the year. Okay, so they have another question that has just popped up. Someone on Twitter. Westward, the company recently raised at 12 cents. How much of a cash runway does the company have for exploration?
Yeah, so we raised about $2.5 million at 12 cents. Our current cash balance is about 2.3 million, and we've earmarked 1.3 for the drill program, which includes earthwork and assays. So that should be a fairly all-in figure. So with corporate overhead running 50,000-60,000 a month on average, so by the time the assays come out, we should have just probably about $600,000 to $700,000 dollars left over there. Hopefully the assays can provide a catalyst. It's no secret we will need to raise money again to complete all our ambitious plans here. But in terms of runway, we're not going to be in imminent danger. We're not going to need to do a fire sale private placement at the end of this campaign.
Okay, thank you. I think you perhaps alluded to this before, but what depth are you drill testing with the drill program at Toyabe? Was it, you said 4,000, was that right?
That's 4,000 meters is the total meterage over 12 to 15 holes. So we're going to be going about 300 meters is the goal. And we can go plus or minus depending on what we're seeing coming out of the ground. But on average, that'll get us through that deformation zone that we're trying to test, which lies about 250 meters.
Okay, excellent. Well, let's see if any more questions are coming in from people watching today. If any do pop up, then we can. Yes, there we go. Oh, here we go. What are the salaries of the board? This is always a good one. What are the salaries of the board and the current shareholding?
So the board is not paid. In terms of management, I am taking $8,700 a month Canadian, which is, I think, fairly reasonable. Our CFO is in line with that, and our VPX is a little bit more. He's taking 10,000 US a month down in Reno. That's just the going rate for skilled geologists these days. So we try and keep our cash burn relatively low. And honestly, most months I'm in the market buying shares. So is our CFO. Between the two of us, we own about 7 or 8% of the company. Combined management, board of directors, and technical advisors, we're at about 22% of the shares. So by far the largest group of shareholders are insiders.
Indeed, yes, 22%. That's a significant number. I think shareholders always like to know that directors have skin in the game, as the saying goes. So that's good to hear. You've got a significant position there. Just thinking back, just very quickly, to an interview we did. I know you're on. I think the company is actually on television in the United States. There was actually a professional team that made a video of you, which I think is either teasered on your website or coming soon. I think it's worth watching that because it is quite a high production value.
So that was put together by a production company that reached out to us. It's for a program called Viewpoint with Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid's the host. He does a little intro piece that I haven't seen yet. That'll be for the TV version in the States. But what it is a short form educational style documentary. So it's not meant to be promotional at all. But we did get chosen as the featured company for their feature on gold exploration or early stage exploration in the States. The targeted audience are people who do not understand mining at all. And I think, one of the main reasons why we were chosen is because of our use of this hyperspectral technology, which is fairly cutting edge, and not a lot of companies that I know of our size are able to or have the knowledge or the resources to use that type of technology. So I know the Barricks and the Newmonts of the world are certainly using it, but that's kind of why we were featured, is because it was the lean on innovative technologies.
Yes, that hyperspectral, we talked about that briefly, and it is in that video. It's a very exciting piece of equipment that not many companies have, I think, to really see what you form an image, isn't it, of what's in the core.
So essentially every mineral reflects energy and light in a unique way. So it beats the old school method of the geologist logging core with the naked eye. This kind of takes the guesswork out of it.
Yeah, good, excellent. Okay, I see there is another question come in. I noticed Keith Newmeyer as a shareholder. Is that significant?
So Keith is very well known in mining circles around the world, and certainly here in Canada. He's the chairman of First Mining, and First Mining is the company that we optioned Turquoise Canyon off of. So, and he's been investing with us in seed rounds and private rounds, before we went public. So he's been very supportive, and First Mining in general has been very supportive. Some of their other executives are personal shareholders as well. Whether or not that's significant, I think a lot of people, they look to these well-known mining figures as kind of bellwethers. So if Keith is a shareholder, that gives us a little bit of validation that he believes in the story. And we have a lot of other shareholders. A lot of them prefer not to be named because they don't want the market to know what they're buying. But Keith is happy to be broadcast as one of our shareholders. So if that's significant, I think, it's another point of reference for people to know that it's a real story.
Indeed, yeah, I think it helps when you get people who are credible in the space, holding shares and also publicly announcing that they are. I think that does go a long way. I think there's probably just time for one more question that's just popped up. Colin, what is your previous experience before Westward? Did you hold any other board roles?
Sure. So I started my career in the mining industry as a mining engineer out of school. So I did my mining engineering degree, worked in as an engineer for a couple of years before going back to school, doing my MBA. And then following that, really transitioned to the corporate finance side of the business. So I did investment banking at Bank of Montreal in Toronto on their metals and mining team for a few years. And then when the market kind of dropped out in 2013, 2014, I went over to a cashed up private equity fund in Toronto. They're called Waterton. And they were being very acquisitive at the time. It was the bear market, so there's a lot to scoop up. So lots of deal flow and primarily buying assets in Nevada. So very deal heavy, and really that was a great exposure to the state and just all the projects that are in the state. So a lot of them I'm familiar with from my days at Waterton. And then what brought me out to Vancouver was another private equity company recruited me. They're called Pacific Road Capital. They ended up a couple of years later going through a restructuring, and that's when I went out on my own and co-founded a private gold company, which was called Momentum Minerals. That company we optioned Turquoise Canyon into, and then we essentially did an RTO in July of 2021 to take that public through what was then IM Exploration, and then we rebranded to Westward Gold. In terms of other board of director roles, I'm on the board of a CPC, which doesn't take really any time at all. I am pretty much 100% dedicated to this story. I think as kind of, a first go around being a management of a public company, you need to be focused. There's it's been a learning experience for sure.
Good. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Colin Moore, the CEO and president of Westward Gold. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. So if you can stick around for another half an hour, and we can come back and have our discussion with everyone at the end on the junior mining exploration space and what's going on. But thank you very much. For now, we will take a quick 2-minute break, and we will be back with Power Metal Resources and Paul Johnson. But thank you, Colin.
Thanks very much, Mark.
Hello, welcome back to StockBox Premiere Live tonight, where our next guest is Paul Johnson, the CEO of Power Metal Resources. Good evening, Paul. How are you doing? Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, Mark. I'm well. How are you?
Very good. Thank you, Paul. Very good. Thank you. So today with you, we're going to be talking about the Malopo Farms complex project in Botswana. And I know that you like this project, and the name always sounds quite intriguing. Could you give an overview of what the scale of opportunity you see at the Malopo Farms complex and what the recent exploration programs have achieved?
Yes, sure. Well, back in 2019, Power Metal engaged first with the Malopo Farms Complex project by buying a stake in Kalahari Key Mineral Exploration Pty, the Botswana holding company. They've been running the project for 4 or 5 years. They'd done various work at that point, and they hit a bit of a wall because they needed to raise some money to do some helicopter airborne electromagnetic work, and we helped them by buying some shares in Kalahari Key. As part of that deal, we took a second element, as we commonly do, which was a right to spend $500,000 supporting a drill program once the targets had been established, and that gave us a 40% direct project stake. So we had the company stake and the project stake. Overall, right now, or maybe as of yesterday, we had circa 53% of the Malopo Farms project. It's been an amazing opportunity. They started out with circa 2,500 square kilometers of ground. They did the work to narrow down to 6 principal targets, of which 3 were drilled in late 2020, early 21. And of the 3 holes, hole K16 was a particular success, hitting nickel sulfides, getting some interesting grades out, and really slammed into the target commodity that we were looking for. Since then, the project has gone a little bit quiet and not progressed as much as it should do. And you often get this situation in private companies where they have multi shareholders in the mix, and things don't move as progressively and as proactively as you would like. Today we've made an announcement to confirm that we've increased our stake to, well, subject to completion, and we have a few bits and pieces to do. We will increase our stake to 88% of that project, with certain shareholders, original shareholders, carrying on with us. So yeah, we're very excited for us to narrow down a district scale opportunity into a number of targets, a small number of focused targets, to do the drilling. And in the first drill program, only 3 holes, I've got the number here, 1,600 meters of diamond drilling to hit the target commodity is almost a miraculous outcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that summary, Paul. So the main target commodity is nickel at Malopo, but recent exploration results perhaps suggest opportunities for other commodities. So what other commodities could you be looking at here at Malopo Farms?
Well, you never know until you do the drilling and you take the core out and do the analysis. Where we've obviously hit the nickel sulfides, we've talked about that. We're looking for PGMs, we're also looking for copper. And what we now need to do is take all that information that we've gathered over the years, quite a dramatic amount of data, and formulate that into next stage drill program. I mean, that's effectively it. You know, we're not looking at anything too complicated. Just want to crack on and do more drilling because we think there is a possibility of opening up a district scale major discovery. Otherwise, why would you bother? And we've had quite a lot of closeness to the project in recent years. We've got a great team in Power Metal, a technical team. We've got great technical advisors. There are some great people in Botswana who can help and assist with the work that's being done. So all together, we're just looking at cracking on with next stage drilling.
Okay, so looking to open up a district scale opportunity. Excellent. Sounds very good. And perhaps on that theme, just of course, a few hours ago, you have announced some significant news late in the trading day. And I think you just got it in before the markets closed at 4:30. But the news, of course, that you have increased the company's stake in the project from 58.7% to 87.71%, so significantly increasing the ownership there. And you will become the operator of Malopo Farms project. So you've done this deal
Yeah.
Why have you done this deal, Paul? Can I ask?
Well, let's go back to what time we announced it. Was it 4:18 p.m.? I think somebody sent me the deal that we had a close off date. It had a date and time. It had to be announced by 5 p.m. today. So we had to get that announcement out. It would have been worse, perhaps, had it have come out at 4:48. But we did the deal because we passionately believe in large district scale opportunities. That's the first thing. We are focused as a business on doing things differently. And part of that is that our exploration projects, although they are a complete mix across the 14 project package portfolio around the world, are essentially focused on large opportunities. We see that the world has moved on, and particularly in recent months has definitely moved on to a place where there will be dramatic metal demand. We see an environment where for a decade or 2 decades in certain cases, there hasn't been adequate exploration by the larger firms in our space. They've been making vast amounts of money as the metal prices rise, but they haven't been doing that pipeline exploration. They will default to the juniors, of which Power Metal is one, to look for these new opportunities. We've acquired our portfolio over the last 3 years, principally in difficult market conditions. So even though as an investor, I really feel the pain of the difficult market conditions, from a corporate perspective, we absolutely love it because it gives us vast opportunity to build our business. And in this case, we've been working closely with this business since 2018, actually, because initially I became an investor in the Kalahari Key business, a small position that was then vended into Power Metal to avoid any conflicts. But back in 2019, I saw the passion in that team's eyes. When we did the first deal, my first attempt to strike a deal with Kalahari Key was to give them part money spent on the projects and part money spent on the management team to make sure they were paid for what they were doing. They were not interested in taking money for themselves. They were interested in having money spent on the project, and that was their focus. So ultimately, that's the deal that we did back in 2019. The work that's been done all the way through, including 2019 onwards, with our involvement, has seen a continual increase in positivity with regard to the project, to a level that you don't normally get. And we desperately wanted to push this project forward, hence our support and engagement with the Kavango proposal that was made that ultimately didn't make it over the line. And we said to shareholders at the time, when it didn't make it over the line, that we were looking to sort the situation out. And it's important, I think, from a shareholder perspective, that if you have difficult phases or challenges in a business, a listed business, that the management team mobilize, that they get on with the job and they sort out any issues that arise. And that's what we've done. We're now in a position with this proposal where we have this circa 88% interest subject to completion. We have shareholders who are carrying on, which we're delighted about because we're going to keep them on board. We're going to be liaising with them on a regular basis and building this opportunity. We have a control over what happens as operators, so we can make the decisions on the ground, and we can bring along our shareholder partners with us on any major operational and corporate decisions. If you look at the transaction today, you'll see in the announcement we've made it very clear that the vendors of the Kalahari Key shares will get shares in Power at a circa 27% premium, I think, to the price today. They'll get warrants at double that level, so shares at 1.75, warrants at 3.5, and in the event that we sign a deal, a large deal with regard to the project, either a disposal or a earning joint venture type arrangement, they will get top up warrants at 5 pence a share, Power Metal share. So the deal as a whole is the right one. It's definitely at the right time. It's definitely in the right project. And now our job is to mobilize and turn this project into more than the success it already is, but we hope into a spectacular success.
Okay. So how will you do that then? What are the next steps for Molopo? I did read the RNS and your comment said excellent initial drill results last year which you now intend to follow up at some pace. And presumably now with the new ownership, you are able to do that. Are we likely to see the drills turning again in 2022, or is this about building a data set for potential partners or majors?
Yeah, well, we've undertaken 6 drill programs individually or with partners over the last 18 months. So we are a drilling company, it feels at times. We do so much work around the globe. And that's the best way to find the answers to what they call the exploration questions as quickly as possible. So, yeah, we would love to get the drill turning as soon as possible, and that's going to be our focus. We've obviously got vast amounts of data. One of the things that I think is missed in our market today, very commonly actually, is that exploration has been going on for quite some time. Now, in the dim and distant past, the exploration that was undertaken wasn't perhaps documented as well as it is today. But over many years now, explorers have been writing down what they've found in their work. For very many years, those records have been logged in a central database that's very often accessible by the public. And if you do a data trawl across the projects that you're interested in, you can generate vast amounts of information, and it's free on the whole because it's public information. So that's what we do pretty much on all of our projects now. You're seeing some incredible work that's been done, particularly in FDR, our vehicle in the Western Australia and Northern Territory projects. And pretty much across our business, that's what we focus on. Where can we gather the most information as quickly as possible, free of charge, I have to say, for the consultancy fees or the internal team fees that we're paying, as it were, to do that work. Now, with regard to Molopo, there is a vast amount of information. We're aware of that information. We have a data room that we've been working on and building over the last couple of years, and we're focusing the next drill program on the basis of the work that's been done to date. We're quite excited about it. We'll adopt a disciplined and focused approach to it. We'll work with our shareholder partners going forward to make sure they're on board as well. And hopefully, it won't be too long before we're announcing those plans to market, giving you more information. We are a business that talks about what we do quite a lot. Last year, we got so much criticism for too many announcements. Well, it's because we have a wide, diverse portfolio and so many large projects within it. We tried to slim things down a little bit by doing quarterly reports like the Canadians and Australians do in their markets. We've also introduced a newsletter to provide further information to shareholders that's coming out at the moment on a weekly basis. But we will continue on these major programs to give shareholders regular updates where it's possible. So we will come out with plans for the next stage exploration. We will make sure the pictures are published when we go into the field with the drill rig. We will give you updates along the way. You've seen that recently with the Kavango joint venture that we have at Ditau project in Botswana. And we're trying to give shareholders a real feel for where these projects are as they happen, rather than just quietly disappearing and not saying that much about them.
Okay. Well, thank you. I look forward to seeing that, and I will be remembering to pick you up on the updates coming there from Molopo Farms. Is it fair to say there was perhaps a little bit of frustration with the board of the team at Power Metals that you weren't able to do stuff, and that's really what caused you to take this extra percentage so that you really can be in the driver's seat and take it where you want to take it?
Yeah, it's difficult. I never like to criticize partners, people that I've been working with. There are a whole variety of reasons why things don't go according to plan. And my job is not to sit there and whinge about it. My job is to get on and do the work and to make the phone calls, to send the emails, to make things happen. And that's pretty much across the business. Things don't always go smoothly in our business. It is high risk. It is particularly tricky. It's quite emotive, where we can be dealing with partners who are not in the same position as we are, or perhaps with the same focused drive as we do, and we have to manage all those things. So my main attention over recent months has been getting a transaction done with regard to Molopo to make sure that we can move this project forward. We've achieved that today. It's a very fair deal for all the parties involved, including Power Metal. It's a deal that structures the project with focus control through Power Metal, which is absolutely vital. If you're trying to attract, large organizations into your business and looking at your projects, they want to see either a coordinated partnerships with operational joint venture partners, or they want to see control. And we have that in place with this transaction. So we're glad that it's done. There has been some frustrations, I know, in the market with regard to the speed at which this really great opportunity has moved. I apologize for that. Ultimately, I'm CEO of Power Metal. Anything that goes well in our business, I have to pass the credit on to other people. And there's plenty of people who've been involved in this transaction who've done tremendous work. If anything goes wrong, I take it on the chin, because as CEO, that's my job.
Okay. Well, thank you, Paul. That gives us a nice comprehensive overview there of Molopo Farms, and hopefully we'll see some of those developments coming out in the not too distant future. So now it's about time that we ask anyone watching, any shareholders, potential shareholders or investors, if they have any questions. And I can see one has popped up here. So with increased interest in Molopo, is this now more likely to be spun out as an IPO sooner rather than later? Also, could we have a few words on the Ditau release this morning? I know core picks are appreciated.
Yeah. Okay. So honestly, right now our focus is exploration at Molopo and moving it to next stage. It's very simple. It's the second phase drill program that we have to crack on with. We believe we stand a very decent chance of success, and by doing the next stage drill program, that we will see, we hope, an inherent valuation increase in that project, which will make it even more marketable to our shareholders, first and foremost. That's the most important thing. But also, if there is interest out there, then it will certainly help draw people in, organizations in, to take a further look. Now, in fairness, they've already got lots of information in the public domain about the project that can draw them in. You don't get too many, big nickel sulfide potential major discoveries out there. So this type of project is always going to be of interest. So that's exploration focus for now, but hey, if the right transactional opportunity comes along at any time, then we would certainly look at it. It's the same for all our portfolio. None of our projects is off the chopping block for the right transactional approach. As for the pictures this morning, yeah, I know, it's interesting, isn't it? You so much of the time with these core pitches, all you see is endless grey. And we saw a bit when you're going down through Kalahari Sands, it's a bit dull, and then you get you're drilling down towards the target zone. It's grey, and then all of a sudden, that happens that you saw in the pictures, and your eyes pop out of your head, and it causes lots of internal discussion, excitement, engagement. Ultimately, and it's no secret this. Until you do the assay testing of what's actually in that core, you don't really know. Now, is it true that from a technical perspective, that core made everyone sit up, pay attention, and cause lots of discussion and debate? Absolutely. And we wanted to get those core pictures out so people could see what we had seen. We're very excited about Ditau as a project. We are always accepting that exploration programs like this is deep drilling. This is the kind of stuff, Mark, that juniors generally don't do because it's deemed by them too risky. You got to keep a fair amount of your money for your overheads, and you don't want to go into these programs because they're not cheap, and people worry about spending too much of the cash on this type of thing because it is such high risk. We've been quite fortunate with our exploration programs. On the whole, they seem to have turned out really well so far. But we'll have to wait and see. So we're moving ahead, making the preparations to do the multi-element assay testing, and then we're cracking on with hole 3 at Ditau. We'll see what transpires. You just don't know. But surely, if you're an investor in our space, in junior resources, you want access to these kind of opportunities, the potential transformational opportunities that can change the life of the company and its underlying shareholders is exactly what we're here for. We're not here to tinker around with things. We're here to crack on with the job.
Yeah, good. Okay. Now I have a question for you on, well, let's have a look at this one that's just come in. If you had to pick only one project of all you have in the power portfolio, what would it be?
Yeah, if I did that, I could spend more time in the greenhouse. I say that because Michelle's watching, my wife. So and we're doing some gardening at the moment. It's difficult for me. I have a great passion for Pilot Mountain in Nevada, USA. I was on the board of Thor Mining, where that project came from. It's getting a lot of focused attention now. Part of the Golden Metal Resources package that's moving towards a planned IPO in London. And we always have been very excited about that. But I could look across our business, the work that's been done, the First Development Resources, where we have the Javier on Style, the magnetic bullseye targets in the Wallal project that will, following FDR's plan listing in London, will be drilled. And the Celta project, uranium rare earths, project with other, shall we say, commodity potential as well. Just tremendous opportunities. Our business in Botswana is quite dramatic, and very excited about that. It's difficult for me to pick, and occasionally, I get asked this question. We've tried to be different. I keep saying that, by building this big portfolio in a time of difficulty in the markets, in anticipation that the time would come when our junior resource base rises like a phoenix from the ashes, as it were, of the markets, and we believe that time is very near. And if I've got this right, and our business and our team have got this right, then we will have a powerful, if I can say that word, portfolio that will generate dramatic value for our shareholders. So I don't know. I'm not gonna drop on one right now. We have too many to pick one.
Maybe a slightly different question to that would be, how do you manage the pragmatism and not fall in love with the project and keep following it? Are you able to separate a kind of a personal affection for a project from, the reason why you're here, which is to make those discoveries, to build value for shareholders? Is that a factor that is the problem, and you have means to approach it, Paul?
No, I don't fall in love with any projects or any shareholdings, to be honest. We're in the business game. I know sometimes the junior resource space can be quite depressing for shareholders when they see, management taking vast amounts of money out of the company. They don't see operational progress, very few R&S and that kind of thing. I'm not really of that mindset. I think as a company, we have that duty to not fall in love, that duty to look at everything from a commercial perspective. That's why we're doing the spin-out model in part, alongside the exploration, to generate crystallized value. And I think we're going to face a lot of decisions in the coming years from where we get interest in our projects. We're going to have to drop some projects where perhaps we might feel, it would be nice to take things forward because a good proposal comes along. And we're only one team. We're 10 people at Power Metal Resources at the moment, and I've only got one amount of time as a CEO to run this organization. So we have to be efficient. Spinning out certain of our opportunities, making disposals, undertaking joint ventures with bigger partners are all part of the mix. We're trying to be clever and to do things in a very disciplined and commercial fashion to build a very large business. And that doesn't allow me to take a view on a project and think it's a pet project. It just means I've got to be focused, determined, and make decisions as we go over the coming months and years.
Okay. Can you give any update on the Alamo project in Arizona? It's gone a little bit quiet, I think, in terms of updates there.
yeah, the Alamo has dragged on a bit in terms of getting all the information that we wanted from the exploration programs. We've extended the next property payment that was originally due 31 December. We extended it to the end of March, and then we've done a further extension to mid June. I think it's 15th of June, to give time for that information to come through. As soon as we've got information on it, we'll come back to market. And I appreciate the frustration with that.
Okay. Well, there is another question that has just popped up. Do you need more? This always comes up. Do you need more capacity at board level? It looks light. That chairman question again, perhaps popping its head up.
Yeah, I get that.
It's going to keep coming up, Paul.
All my life, if I tell you what, if I had time to just, this is a good question, by the way. So a little bit tongue in cheek, but we have our main focus is driving the value of the company and doing the operational work and the transactional work that will make a difference. We have been very careful with regard to the board decision making in terms of who we talk to and who we will go forward with. But I'm optimistic that those questions will be answered quite soon.
Okay, quite soon. Okay, well, hopefully the next time that we talk, that will not be a question that pops up. But thank you very much, Paul Johnson. Unless any other final questions from people watching want to come in, then we can probably start to go to our round table. So I think I think everyone has probably asked what they want to ask, it looks like. So excellent. So what I'd like to do now is bring everyone back, if possible, please. Darren and, of course, Colin, here we go. And we're going to have a little bit of a roundtable discussion for the next sort of 15 to 30 minutes. And the first point I would like to talk about is just looking at the recent market pullbacks over the last 2 weeks. What is each of your take on what's happening here? Could it be a simple, healthy correction, perhaps due to a bubble inflated by quantitative easing and fresh money into the markets during COVID? Could it be a signal to the end of the crypto or tech bubble, similar to maybe .com? Or is it something more serious drawn out? So, Colin, first of all, I mean, I don't know what the North American markets have been like. I know certainly looking at the US and London, it's certainly had a correction. So what are your thoughts on what's going on?
Well, this is an opportune time to talk about it because it's an absolute bloodbath right now in North American markets. The broader indexes are having one of their worst days in the last couple of years. I think it's it's a confluence of events. Obviously, with COVID, a lot of cheap money floating around, and I think a lot of these bigger names, these majors, ran too fast, too quick. Too high, too quick, and we're starting to see a flight to safety, with inflation rampant, obviously geopolitical risks, especially in Europe, and the flight to safety. Gold is what I primarily look at, but really it's been the U.S. dollar, the beneficiary of all of this, and the dollar index is at 52-week highs now. Gold's held in there pretty well. But in terms of the impact on companies like ours, despite being associated with a generally well-performing and safe commodity, being gold, exploration companies are very risky assets by their nature. So in a risk-off environment that we find ourselves in right now, everyone's going to feel the pain, regardless of what their underlying commodity is, I think. So if you have the stomach for it, that can present a generational opportunity, but nobody likes to try and catch a falling knife either. So volatility has been pretty crazy, and I think people are just kind of waiting on the sidelines, taking some cash off the table and hoping we find a bottom here at some point soon.
Yes, indeed, the bottom, to be found hopefully soon. But catching a falling knife is always a hard one. I mean, we'll talk about, if you have the stomach for it, how can you find the opportunities a bit later on. So, Darren, what's your thoughts on this? Do you agree there with Colin that it's a flight to safety to gold and the US dollar in these certain times? Do you think they'll remain strong in the short term or even longer term?
I think focusing on the sector, my own personal view is it's creating a stunning opportunity, as Colin alluded to, if you've got the stomach for it. But I think what we're seeing at the moment is just a general sweep of risk capital coming off the table, and that's across everything. And ultimately, in an inflationary environment that I've got my own thoughts around, people are going to turn and have turned to cash, but they're very quickly going to have to find a home for that cash, because inflation's going to dilute any potential gains away, and it's going to do that rapidly. I don't think that we're in an environment where inflation is going to come under control in the short term, because the natural element to use to bring the inflation under control is interest rates going up. I think we're all safe in the knowledge that the levels of corporate, but especially governmental debt, is so high that really all they can do is fiddle around inflation, around interest rates. Because I read somewhere some time ago that somewhere in the region of 5% interest rates in America would see over half the American government tax take taken off of the table instantly due to the level of the American government's debt pile. And that's something that won't be acceptable to the American government or the American people, because they've got to replace that tax income somewhere. And at some point, the dilution of the American dollar through the printing presses is going to have a dramatic effect. But basically, all this to me leads to an absolute perfect environment for just about every single commodity. There's fears about issues worldwide, and I agree regarding geopolitical risk as well. That's come into the equation, which I don't think anybody was expecting. But when you put it all into the mix, capital is going to have to find a home, and it's going to look for the safest home and the most secure home. And I think that's going to head towards precious metals. In our case, the deal we done with Sheer Gold on the Manitou Lakes project, it wasn't by mistake that we wanted to bring in another gold project into our portfolio, and it is very much with half an eye on the political and financial situation that the world's currently facing. So, yeah, I think it's short term. I think it's probably time for people to look at the opportunities, find the right businesses, probably to have a pair and go for it, because there's going to be in the exploration sector huge opportunity. But also, if there is major problems within the economic stability of the Western world, governments are then going to print money again, but they're going to invest that money in, and the only home for major investments going forward is going to be the EV market. So that's going to add a positive to our sector again. And we all know there's been plenty of underinvestment in the sector and exploration over the last 15 years. We're all going to benefit. We're all going to benefit massively. Just at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm. So, Paul, do you think it's a short-term thing that's going on, or could it be something a bit more serious that people have to bear in mind?
Oh, I don't know why you're asking me, Mark. I always get this kind of thing wrong. I struggled at school, and when I went to university, I did okay, but I only got a first in one subject, which was macroeconomics, and this baffled me. So I went to the tutor after I got this grade, the top grade, and I said, I don't understand this subject. I never have, and when I did the exam, I had no idea. And she said to me, and that's exactly why you've got a first, Paul, because it's only people that think they know the answers to these things that actually end up with the lower grades. And I genuinely marvel at people who can, can assess this kind of stuff. And I read all these technical articles that, Darren, you mentioned before you like to read. And I really try to do it, but I struggle to keep up. And it's it's a difficult thing that it's an emotional thing to invest in the markets, and you always try and reach out for lots of different reasons why things are happening. And I try and distill it down to simple concepts in my own investing life, and that we need metal. You know, we've got green technology and dramatic infrastructure spend, which is coming our way, and it needs metal. And for 10 or 20 years, depending, there hasn't been the build-up in the supply pipeline for that metal. So at some point, it's going to kick in. And was it Mark Twain that said, you know, markets can stay rational longer than you can stay solvent, or somebody like that? And it's quite difficult to stay in this space. People go to cash, people move their positions around, people panic, people run away from the space, you know, and sometimes they pick bad investments and they get diluted down to death, or the companies collapse. So there's lots of different factors. But look at the COVID dip in March 2020, the GFC, in 2008. May 2010 was my personal nemesis, where the markets collapsed and I lost 40% of my portfolio in 3 weeks. For these and other events, when everyone was very upset and concerned and worried about the future, those are where I made my biggest returns. You know, when the market's in the precarious state is where my portfolio as an investor has delivered big time. The only thing that I needed to do in those cases, and the only thing I did do, is hold on. So I'm not too worried about macroeconomics because I don't understand it. And I'm not too worried about, you know, how long this is going to take, because I think, you know, the production of goods, the building of roads, of hospitals, the development of green technology is going on at pace. At some point, our time will come. I quoted Robert Friedland the other day with his comment about revenge of the miners, but far bigger than the revenge of the miners is the revenge of the junior resource companies, because it's coming down the road.
Okay, well, on that theme then, just thinking about that, I think we all agree that mining commodities stocks and of course the base metals will have their decade in the sun. How do you find the investment opportunities? I mean, for many investors, this could be the first time that they're seeing these sort of corrections. And when you're looking at 30% correction on major indices, that is pretty scary. You, Paul, said you experienced 40% loss of your net worth in 3 weeks. That is unnerving for sure. And you've been through it. Some people, particularly new people to the market, would not have been through that. People who've come in during the kind of COVID lockdown situations. How do you make the situation work for you? How do you find the compelling opportunities? Of course, it helps to have cash. You need cash to do it. But what can you do to benefit from the chaos, let's say, and accumulate at the lows and really position, particularly in junior resource companies, ready for what is possibly going to be perhaps not once in a lifetime, but it's once or twice in a lifetime opportunity, I think, for this sector. So, Darren, let me ask you that question first. How do you find the compelling opportunities? What metrics are we looking for? Are we looking at commodities? Are we looking at how companies have run, how they've cashed up? What kind of things do you think?
For me personally, it's look. You can only use history as the greatest indicator of what future events will bring. And I think you do your due diligence. You look at the management teams. You look at what they've done in the past. You just look at the assets, and you do your research on your assets, and you make a conclusion based on that information. And should anything change, then adjust your thought processes, either positively or negatively. But yeah, have a look at what's gone in the past and review the management. Ultimately, as Paul kind of alluded to within his talk, it's down to the teams that you've got and the ability of the people that you're working with that is gonna deliver the greatest results. But that's irrespective of sector as well. You know, that's across any business across the globe. And so yeah, do your due diligence. That's what would be my key driver to what you're looking for.
Okay. Well, you did mention, didn't you, about where the money will go if the government have to step in again. It will go into the green economy, infrastructure, electric vehicles, and as I say, we all know how long that whole sector has been in a downswing. Colin, do you agree that we are going to have a decade in the sun for this sector, commodities and precious metals? And again, how would you look for the opportunities?
Absolutely, 100% agree. I think one of probably the best bellwether for that is if you look at copper, the chronic underinvestment in that space over the last 20 years has led to a supply shortage. And the only way we're going to incentivize some of these projects to get built is with higher copper prices. Gold is a bit of a pseudo commodity in that it's also used as a store of value. So it's not really based on pure supply and demand, but in the backdrop of an inflationary environment, I think everyone is going to have to seriously look at adding precious metals to their portfolio, be it on a corporate scale or personally or central banks. And then in terms of trying to pick and find opportunities, we're getting to the point where a lot of these companies that have track records of success, very strong management teams, have weathered bear markets in the past. And when we were essentially in a bear market in the junior gold space for 2013 through 2015 and 16, and going back and looking at the history and how did these companies weather the storm? Did they take advantage of the opportunities that were presented? And I think also something that people don't necessarily pay enough attention to is capital structure. And I'm not just talking about how much cash they have, but is there a lot of cheap paper out? Did the founders gift themselves millions of shares at fractions of a penny? And at the first sign of pain in the market, those are going to be, the first shares to come off. And, regardless of how the retail shareholder is getting punished, a lot of the cheap shares are still in the money. So have a look at that, read the fine print, and then it comes down to team, location, and assets.
Team, location, and assets. Okay. Paul, I know you always talk about no one wants to buy when the sale and the discount signs are up, the sale signs are up. It goes against your sort of mental, your emotional thinking. And someone said to me, you've got to buy when it feels like swallowing broken glass. And I think you say sell when you feel like you're master of the universe. But it is a lot easier said than done. What would your advice be, let's say, for people who are looking, who want to take advantage of these compelling opportunities? What can they do?
Oh God, it's so difficult because it's personal emotion and your characteristics layered onto the investing decision every time. I think you can, if you can sign up to regulated stockbrokers and open yourself up to financings, if you can. You might not be able to. I started off with a tiny pot back in 2009. I mean, a really tiny pot. And I did all my trading through Halifax in the UK and Barclays with no access to brokers. But if you can get into the brokers, open up accounts, then that's a great way to get exposures to financings and potentially warrants that can come with them. I think you can make good money off really poor quality stocks with poor management teams that are not shareholder aligned. Generally speaking, I would buy after financings are done, because what you don't want to do is get caught out on a spike, buying in because the stock's popular, wait for them to do the financing. The spikes are often a precursor to a financing, not always, but often. But I would put a decent amount of your money into good quality stocks where people have a passion. I don't know Colin apart from tonight, but I know Darren, and I've known Darren for some time, and the way he commits to this business is admirable, and the focus and the determination to learn is incredible. That should be followed and that should be supported. I've seen people make good amounts of money off companies like Panther, where it's run with a determined and professional management team that are committed and have a significant investment, which is the point that Colin made before. Check for the cheap stocks, the sweat equity, they call it. They don't often sweat for that equity either. They just get big amounts that are done at fractional prices. I think you've got to take the emotion out of this. The best returners I've had personally have been where the market's been dull on stock, where it's gone for months without too much movement in the price, but it has a good business model. And layer into it a lot of research. This is, it's not magic. None of the investors out there, I mean, that person that says like, buy when it's like swallowing broken glass, that's a lie. If they swallow broken glass, they wouldn't be here to tell you that's tail. They've never experienced that moment. It's a very personal thing, investing. And do pile yourself with research, and you will massively increase your edge against the competition.
Okay. Thank you very much. And just talking, I want to pick up on a point you said, Colin, about weathering the storm. Do you think it's wise for investors to put some capital aside, perhaps, to weather the storm? And it's very difficult to say, but do you think there would be a catalyst moment that might transform attitudes and valuations in junior explorers, or will it just sort of slowly start to happen, and then one day people will cotton on to what's going on, that the money is moving into this sector, just like it was perhaps missed with the cryptos many years ago, slowly, and then everyone's interested?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try and call a bottom or anything like that here. And in terms of catalysts or timing on the, I would be lying if I said I had any idea when it would turn around. But usually when everyone is totally exacerbated and nobody wants to have anything to do with junior mining stocks anymore, that's the time to buy. And I agree. You gotta layer yourself into these positions. You shouldn't be buying all at once. Don't try and be a hero calling the bottom there, and just be patient. A lot of these stories take years to properly develop. So you shouldn't be in it for a quick flip. This is not. I don't have a trader's mentality when it comes to these positions. You have to be patient, and you have to wait for the thesis to bear itself out.
Okay. And just talking to you all there, it seems that you all three are aware of what's going on. It's on your mind. Some of you have been through it before. So you feel that each individual company is in a good position to benefit from when the tide comes in and all boats rise. Darren, what do you think?
The simple answer is yes. First of all, Paul, thanks for very generous comments. Appreciated. Yeah, I follow. I don't follow the overall exploration space as I used to. I'm very boring these days. It's kind of Panther focused, and I come across the odd messages and RNSs via different means, and I make no apologies for that. But I do think that there are certain elements of the market that you have got to look out for. London, it's interesting what Colin was saying. The overall market isn't necessarily in a great place across the globe, but Canada is a lot bigger market for exploration, and certainly from a Panther perspective, what I'm looking out for is a decent winner, is a discovery in London within the junior resource space. We're swimming in a pond of probably 100 companies, and of those, there'd certainly be a smaller group that has the chance of making a true discovery. You certainly include Power in that. Whereas in Canada, Colin, what you do, 1,300 companies?
Yeah, I was going to say 1,500. Yeah. So, there's a lot of competition for capital.
Yeah. So if we could get a discovery in London from somebody, and you can get a 4 or 5, a decent discovery, you get a 4 or 5 bagger, you actually generally find that capital then gets spread out across the market. So that's certainly a catalyst that I would look for, that is maybe just more London specific than you see in Canada or Australia, due to their market dynamics and the market sizes. So yeah, it's like we said, nobody wants to catch a falling knife. Everything's positioned beautifully. You look at what Paul's discussed with Powell, the assets there. you don't need a lot of success at the current market capitalizations of these companies to really garner gains that can actually make life-changing gains for people, and that's one of the things that I'm certainly looking out for in London, and almost a GGP moment for London, and I think that will have a very, very big impact.
Okay, yes, well, a lot of people will remember that GGP moment. It wasn't that long ago either, so it can still happen even when the sector is not in vogue, let's say. Paul, any comments from you, Paul? Of course, Power has a huge portfolio, so one could say that you're spreading your risk, but also maybe spreading too thin. I don't know, but you feel Power is very well poised.
Yeah, come on, we've got to go for it. It's a great sector. It's life changing. You can make dramatic amounts of money in our space. The reality is most people lose all of it. So you've got to be very careful. No one's your friend. No one is your friend. In my company, my shareholders just want to make money. Anyone you speak to just wants to make money. So everyone sells their book, talks their book, sorry, and wants you to invest in their stocks, generally when they've already invested in them, And the reality is that every single investor in the markets today, I believe, has the capabilities to make it work. I don't think it's fancy. I don't think it's Ferraris and holidays and pictures of the swimming pool telling people that you're away but still watching the markets. I think it's just about the hours you put in. There's no genius in our markets at all in the investing group. It's the hard work, determination. And a lot of people make a lot of money after they've lost a big amount of money too. They've had that experience and had to go through the emotional turmoil. One thing I would say is do 100% the opposite of what you feel. When you feel ecstatic with something, a stock, it's generally because it's gone up an awful lot. Sell 70% of it. If you feel miserable about something, but you cannot identify anything fundamentally wrong with it, you just feel miserable, stick with it because it's probably going to have a good bounce. And it's incredibly hard to do. But keep confident times like this. We're an amazing sector with some amazing people, who are prepared to get out there and have a go. And I do think the metal space drives our world, and the people in it, the good people in it. There's not that many, in fairness, but there's a good minority who are really working hard to try and make people money, provide the metals that the world needs, and generally speaking, deliver an outcome for people that can make a difference in their lives. So stick with it and keep fighting.
Stick with it and keep fighting. Okay. And Colin, I'll just ask you any final comment from you. You agree with that? Stick with it and keep fighting. Is that what your company were doing if needs be?
Couldn't agree more. And we have no choice. This is what we signed up for.
Excellent. Well, thank you all very much for that little roundtable discussion there on the sector. I think it was topical with what's been going on in the last 2 weeks, looking at the indices pulling back like that. Certainly for me, it's I'm not that old, so I've not really seen a crash. The COVID blip was very brief, so seeing this happen was quite an eye opener for me. But I'm sure there will be more again. But I'm sure as well the opportunities are there, as you all said, if you can pick the right stocks. And certainly this sector, certainly the signs are there. The commodities prices seem to be holding up, even though we've had these major indices pull back. So only a matter of time before the mining commodities sector, junior explorers really do have their decade in the sun. But for now, thank you very much, Darren Hazelwood, the CEO of Panther Metals. Thank you, Colin Moore, the CEO of Westward Gold. And Paul Johnson, the CEO of Power Metal Resources. Thank you all very much for joining us tonight on StockBox Premier, and from everyone here from the StockBox team, very good night.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.